The Book of Esther, it's one of those stories you probably think you know inside and out. It's got everything, right? Palace drama, crazy plot twists, some seriously satisfying irony. But what if I told you there's a huge mystery hiding right in plain sight? Okay, so get this. The big puzzle, the central mystery of the whole book, is that God is, well, he's just not there. His name doesn't appear a single time in the entire original Hebrew text. Not once. So what's the deal? Did a purely secular story just kind of sneak its way into the Bible? Or is there something deeper, something way more subtle going on here? That's exactly what we're going to dig into. All right, so before we can really crack the case of the missing God, we've got to get on the same page with the story itself. So let's do a quick run-through of the high-stakes palace drama that makes this book so unforgettable. So the whole thing kicks off with this incredibly powerful and maybe a little insecure King Xerxes. He's throwing a massive party, and he tells his wife, Queen Vashti, to come out and show off her beauty for all his drunk friends. And she's like, no. Big surprise, the king absolutely loses it. He banishes her with this unchangeable royal law, and just like that, there's an opening for a new queen in the most powerful empire in the world. And this is where Esther comes in. She's a Jewish orphan raised by her cousin Mordecai. She gets swept up with all these other young women and taken into the king's harem. But somehow, against all odds, she completely captures the king's attention. And bam, she's the new queen of Persia. The catch? No one can know she's Jewish. It's a secret she has to guard with her life. Okay, now it's time to meet the bad guy, Haman. He's the king's right-hand man, and he's got a serious ego problem. When Mordecai, Esther's cousin, refuses to bow down to him, Haman's pride is so wounded that his anger just explodes. It goes from a personal grudge to this absolutely monstrous plot to kill every single Jewish person in the empire. And he's so sneaky, he even gets the king to sign off on it, sealing the deal with the royal ring. And this is where the story completely flips on its head. It all starts with the king having a sleepless night. He can't sleep, so he's like, hey, read me the boring old court records. And what does he hear? That Mordecai saved his life from an assassination plot years ago, and he never got rewarded. This one little coincidence sets everything in motion. Esther bravely makes her move, exposes Haman's evil plan, and in maybe the greatest reversal of all time, Haman ends up being executed on the very gallows he had built for Mordecai. You can't make this stuff up. Okay, so that's the story in a nutshell, which brings us right back to our big question. This all sounds like a miraculous rescue, right? A story of divine deliverance. So where is God? The silence in the text is just deafening. So people basically fall into two camps on this. There are some scholars who look at this and say, look, it's a secular book. It's about nationalism, cultural compromise, and heroes who are kind of flawed. But then there's this other, much older idea from rabbinic tradition, that God isn't absent, he's intentionally hidden. And get this, the name Esther itself is a clue. In Hebrew, it sounds a lot like the word Esther, which means I will hide. It's like a secret message from the very beginning that God is concealed, working behind the scenes. Okay, so if we go with that theory, that God is hidden, not gone, then you'd expect to find some clues, right? And the answer is absolutely yes. The author leaves this amazing trail of breadcrumbs, these little hints that point to a divine hand guiding everything from just off stage. So let's look at the evidence. Clue number 1, illusions. When Mordecai is trying to convince Esther to act, he says help will come from another place. That's basically code for God without saying the name. Clue number 2, appeals. Esther doesn't say, let's pray, but she calls for a 3-day fast. What is that if not a desperate appeal for divine help? Then you have the so-called coincidences. Like, come on, the king just happens to have insomnia on the one night it matters most. And finally, the reversals. The whole story is built on these crazy turnarounds, which feels less like luck and more like a deliberate design. There's actually a fancy literary term for this, peripety. It just means a sudden, whiplash-inducing reversal of fortune. And the Book of Esther is a total masterclass in it. The day picked for genocide becomes the day of victory. The guy who builds the gallows gets hanged on them himself. See, this isn't just clever storytelling. The structure itself is the argument. It's shouting that there's a higher power systematically turning human evil on its head. All right, now let's complicate things a little. It's really easy to paint Esther and Mordecai as these perfect, shiny heroes, but if you read the text closely, it's way more messy than that.
In fact, let's put them on trial for a minute and look at the charges people bring against them.
So, the prosecution would say Mordecai's family didn't even go back to Jerusalem when they had the chance. He was the one who told Esther to hide her Jewish identity in the first place. And Esther, well, compared to the defiant Queen Vashti, she can seem kind of passive, right? Some people argue she just used feminine wiles to manipulate a dumb king. These aren't small things, they're real moral questions. But the defense has a really strong case. I mean, the text is clear. Esther was taken. She didn't sign up for this. These two weren't acting as free agents in a safe world. They were trapped inside a dangerous, powerful, and hostile system. You could argue they were making the best possible choices in an absolutely impossible situation, playing the long game to save not just themselves, but everyone. So all of this, the hidden God, the flawed heroes, the wild reversals, it leads us to the big why. Why was this specific story written down and saved? With all its moral gray areas, what was its real purpose for the people who first heard it?
And to get that, you have to understand the historical backdrop. After the exile in Babylon, a lot of Jewish people didn't actually go back to Jerusalem. They stayed scattered all over the Persian Empire, living as a minority. That's called the diaspora. And the story of Esther is written for and about them, about what it's like to try and survive and keep your identity when you're a small group in a massive, foreign, and sometimes dangerous empire.
So, the most obvious purpose is to give the origin story for the Jewish festival of Purim. It's even named after the pur, that's the word for the lots that Haman cast to choose the day of destruction. So the book is literally the founding charter for this celebration of survival, making sure this incredible story is never, ever forgotten. But there's something even deeper going on. The Book of Esther is basically a theology for the diaspora. It's a blueprint for survival. It's a guide for how to live as a person of faith when you're surrounded by a culture that doesn't share your values. And its message is powerful. You can't just sit back and wait for a miracle. You have to have courage. You have to be smart. You have to act, trusting that God is working in the background. And that powerful idea of action brings us to the very heart of the story's message. Its final, enduring question that, honestly, still challenges every single one of us today. It's the most famous line in the whole book. It's Mordecai challenging Esther. He says to her, "Who knows? Maybe you were put in this royal position for this exact moment." It's this profound idea that your whole life, your experiences, your unique position, maybe it was all preparing you for one critical moment. It's a call to wake up, see the opportunity, and act with courage when it matters most. And in the end, that's the book's challenge to us. It forces us to look in the mirror, to think about our own lives, our own unique circumstances and skills. It asks every single one of us, how have you been prepared? And what is your such a time as this?